So, thank you everyone for joining us, and I'm delighted to say on this Mother's Day that we have chef and author Margaret Johnson with us, who has ties in Kerry. We were just talking about it. As some of you know, I am on vacation in Ireland, and so I'm at home in my parents' house in the dining room, and we're getting ready for celebrating Mother's Day in America with Margaret's presentation today, which is part of our new kind of Irish cuisine series that Harold Qualters, who is the chef and our board chairman of the board for many years, kind of designed in partnership with me to show the innovation and tradition that does exist within Irish foodways. And so from her first visit in 1984, Margaret Johnson forged an indelible bond with Ireland and Irish food, and she shares her continued passion. She's published several cookbooks, but her latest one is particularly devoted to the special relationship that Irish people have with tea. And any of you who visited Ireland know that tea is drank morning, noon and night here. Tea Time in Ireland, her book, pays tribute to the delightful ritual of taking tea, which can be both formal and informal, of course, and she will invite you on a tasting tour of Ireland where tea drinking serves as a symbol of hospitality, friendship and pleasure. Her book actually has a little bit of Irish tea history. So you'd be amazed to know that even during the Easter Rising, the ladies of Dublin continue to take their tea and cakes with all that damage going on around them. And you will discover, of course, a treasure trove of recipes for hosting your own special occasion afternoon tea. With she's fabulous recipes in there for different kind of sandwiches, but also scones and cake and shortbread. So she has authored 11 cookbooks: Favourite Flavours of Ireland, Christmas Flavours of Ireland, the Irish Pub Cookbook, Irish Puddings, Tarts, Crumbles and Fools, which are edible fools, not the other kind, the Irish Spirit, the New Irish Table, and the Irish Heritage Cookbook, among others. She is a food and travel writer and has contributed to publications in both America and Ireland, including in particular Intermezzo magazine, For the Love of Drink, and the Irish Echo newspaper. So we're delighted to have you, Margaret, and thank you so much for joining us all the way from Long Island. And I'm going to get ready to share the screen just so that so that you guys can follow along on the PowerPoint. Oh, hang on, wrong one. And so you can take it away, Margaret. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you for inviting me. I don't drink as much tea probably as my ancestors did, at least once or twice a day. But I do programs for like public libraries and women's groups and things like that. And I bring with me, it's a formal tea, 3 tiers stand and so on. And I bring with me boxes of Barry's tea and Lyon's tea and Bewley's tea and so on, because a lot of American women, Americans in general, never drink it. They think about Lipton's or some other brand of tea or something very exotic, imported. So I bring those in the original boxes so they can see what the box looks like when they go to the supermarket. And I tell them a little bit about the battle, if you will, between Lyons and Barry's. And if you're a Lyons drinker, you'll never drink Barry's, and vice versa. And so I love to hear first-time Irish tea drinkers debate among themselves which ones. And I always say you can go back and get a second one if you've tried the Barry's first, and so on and so forth. So that's kind of an interesting viewpoint for Americans who've never tasted Irish teas. And they all admit, though, they're very strong, which we all know. And
yeah,
they like the idea that they can get at least 2 cups really out of one bag. So that's an economy.
I have to say, Barry's tea is the only tea I can drink. So I don't drink Lipton's.
Oh, no. It's interesting. Again, for my mother's maiden name was Barry. My great grandfather was James J. Barry. The founder of Barry's Tea was James J. Barry. No relation whatsoever.
No. I thought you were sitting on an empire.
A long lost relative, but yes, my maternal grandfather was from Cork, but he died in America very young. And maybe in 1908 or 1909, he was 29 years old. And my grandmother, my grandmother already had 2 children and was expecting a third when he died. So needless to say that there was no record of anything. So that's like a missing link in my family, whereas my mother's side of the family, when we get to the first slide in the tea time, you'll see that is my distant relative. At any rate, so I'll just tell you quickly about this book, which is the second to latest. I have another one that called Festive Flavors of Ireland, and it's a Christmas cookbook. And it came out last year around November 15th, a little too late for any kind of Christmas sales, Christmas marketing. So I'm considering it a 2022 release, even though it was 2021. So that is my newest, but Tea Time in Ireland is really one of the more popular ones because it's something about afternoon tea. It appeals to everyone. And the stories that are in it about the history of tea and so on, especially. So if you want to go to the first slide, Elizabeth, this is a Kerry cottage. That's the caption in the book. And it's the very first photograph opposite the introduction. And when I do this presentation, I say, that's my Kerry cottage. It isn't really. I always say it across my fingers. It is a relatively new cottage, although it's beautiful, and you probably would think that it's, decades old. But it is on the property where my grandmother's home was. Wow. This is in Rathmore, right outside of Rathmore in County Kerry in Barnard. So that is, I pretend it's my ancestral home. And it's the first place that I visited. One of the first. I was only in Ireland the very first visit in 1984. I was only there for 6 nights. And so the first place, though, that we went was to here, first visit, 1984. And you see the gentleman with the buckets and the woman in the middle. Those were my cousins. I had never met them before. Kit and Mick O'Sullivan. And that's me with short hair, and my daughter, who was 7 at the time, and my son, who was 9. But the first place we did go was here. And I say in my introduction, which I'll read a little bit of it when we get more into the tea part, was that they came up the road with the cows behind them. And I said to my children, I think this is them. I think this is them. And never having met them, only through Christmas cards and things like that. But knowing I was going, of course, I told them I was coming. But they waved only because they had to get the cows in. Yeah. So we more or less had to step aside and let them in, and they were like, okay, hold on, we'll be with you in a minute. So that was the very first experience before we even got into the cottage. So if you want to go just to the next slide.
And Margaret, would one of them was related to your grandmother's people?
Correct. Yeah. My grandmother was an O'Sullivan.
Okay. So it
married,
was through this man.
Right. So this is Kit O'Sullivan, and that is her cottage. So we went across the street. I think this might be a little bit later photo. I'm not sure if she's wearing the same thing. I think that's one of those little.
I think it's one of those house coats. Yeah, house coat. We call them house coats.
Actually, if you go back, I think she is. And I think yes, she's wearing.
10 years later, it actually looks better 10 years later.
Maybe. Oh yeah, this is 94. Yes, thank you. Thanks for correcting that. Yeah, 1994. But on that very first, so you can go to the next slide because I think this is kind of cute. Like this one. Okay, so this is not tea that she's drinking.
No.
Actually, I mixed this up. That should be first, August 1984, and then the next one. At any rate, so when we went across the street from the little barn that you saw in the first slide, she said, of course, will you have tea? And of course, the answer was yes. Okay, so I'm just going to stop here and just read a little bit from the introduction because it does follow along with that. It says, you might say that in Ireland, all roads lead to tea. From breakfast and lunch breaks to weddings and wakes, Cupan Tae is always a welcome guest. Irish tea is far more than just a hot drink to go with scone and jam. It's an important custom that serves as a symbol of hospitality, friendship, and pleasure. Some say the Irish people have a relationship with tea that, quote, transcends the ordinary. Hyperbole, perhaps, but given that the average person in Ireland drinks 4 to 6 cups of tea. Perhaps it's not. Tea time in Ireland is actually my favorite time of the day. I enjoyed my first official cup with my cousin at Kit in her cottage in County Kerry during my first visit there 35 years ago. Within minutes of our meeting, the kettle was on, the teacups were out, and the milk and sugar appeared. A box of Jacob's rich tea biscuits quickly followed, and chocolate Kimberly biscuits for my children arrived on a small plate. Our relationship was ceremoniously underway. For years, I had known Kit only as my Irish cousin, a distant relative twice, maybe even 3 times removed, whom I had never met. Christmas cards were exchanged over the years like pen pals, but this in-person visit with cup in hand closed the gap between cousins from across the pond. Funny enough, we couldn't actually connect the dots in our ancestry chain. She was an O'Sullivan who dropped the O, while my grandmother was an O'Sullivan who kept the O. But none of that really mattered. We sipped our tea and sealed the deal. And as far as connecting the dots, this is another little segue, but maybe 10 years after this first visit, I was in Dublin. My husband and I were in Dublin, and we met a young woman who was working at a hotel we were staying at. And she was just making small talk, you know, where are you from? Where have you visited? And so on and so forth. So when I mentioned we visited Kerry, I started Kerry, the big, and then she said, oh, really, where? And I said, well, Killarney. Oh, really? I'm from Killarney. Well, I'm from outside of Killarney. Oh, really, where? Rathmore. And it went from Kerry to Killarney to Rathmore to Barnard. She lived in the farm next to my kids.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Now I'm still friends with her to this day. Went to her wedding in 1999 or something like that.
Wow.
But it was amazing how that we went from the larger to the smaller and so on. And when her father, my friend Mairead's father, tried to explain this relationship, it was so convoluted. When I say we tried to connect the dots, like at one point I said, how are you my cousin? Really, like, are you my, I knew she wasn't my grandmother's, any of her sisters or not. And then even she couldn't do it. We knew we were related, but it was so
kind of far out or convoluted,
I guess, And then as I mentioned, Mairead's father, who knew her, even he was having trouble. And so we've just decided, we're just going to leave it. She's my cousin.
Yeah.
We just move on and it won't matter.
It covers it all.
It did, right. So if you go to the next slide, you see, okay, so here are the Kimberly biscuits, not the originals, of course, but these are what she brought out for my children because she was offering us something else that she thought the children wouldn't like. And there might be one more. And so this was Mick, again, August 1984. Very quiet man. They were brother and sister, and they lived, you see the cottage. Yeah, brother and sister, neither one had ever married. And that was the little cottage across the street from the barn that I
And I suppose ye drank the milk straight from the cow, hot and thick.
Well, probably because in the little cottage, I guess you'd call it the parlor, the little sitting room. There was only a refrigerator the size of what we would in America know as like a little dormitory size refrigerator. So it was just didn't have very much.
And most space. Farmers would, just dip in the pitcher into the milking parlor and take it. Yeah. Wow.
But you did have some kind of little soft drink or something for the children.
Yeah.
But anyway, so we'll just go to the next paragraph and then we'll move on to this. Okay. Well, here's another one. Yeah. Again, every time I went back, I think I had the same hairstyle. So does she. This is 1993. And there might be one a little bit later.
No.
Oh, no. Okay. So I'll stop there for a moment. So just to go back to the tea, always had the kettle on. We repeated our ritual every time I visited Ireland, usually once a year, but later I supplied the sweets. I bought those cookie collections in fancy tins that you can buy, in big cities with photos of local scenes like Mall's Gap or Ross Castle. I bought them in tour shops in Killarney, or I brought treats from Jam, which was a local bakery known for its heavenly scones and its fruity.
Oh, yeah, that's fabulous.
Yeah. So tea time in Ireland was terrific. And the couple with my cousin was just the beginning of other wonderful experiences, especially afternoon tea, the elegant three-course affair, et cetera, that we all know of. So this was my beginning for my appreciation of afternoon tea, and it was very personal. I think it was so much nicer for me to start here rather than start immediately at maybe the next slide, Adare
Yeah.
Manor for the grand.
Right. The informal, or the formal brand, you know. So yeah.
This is really a one-off, this experience there or at any of some of the other places that you'll see. It's not an authentic picture of tea time in Ireland, even though it is phenomenal, of course. And the photos that you see, of course, didn't all happen 1989, 90, 91. I know this is over a span of 30 years, so I didn't do all the tea places because at the time, probably for the first 25 years of my visits to Ireland, I was writing other cookbooks. So I would focus on maybe like I did an Irish pub cookbook. I did, with different themes. So it really wasn't until I decided on the tea book that I really got involved in some of these lovely places. So if you go to Ireland, and I'm sure many of your members or people who will be looking at the webinar might have been to Adare Manor in County Limerick, which had a multi-million euro facelift and complete renovation and additions and so on, maybe 4 or 5 years ago. So the next slide is of the drawing room at Adare, which is just, it's so luxurious. And just think back now, 5 slides ago to my cousin, little parlor. And then this is where people go. But afternoon tea is a treat. It's not something that people have in surroundings like this every day, of course. It would be the same if you lived in New York. You don't go to tea at the Plaza or the Ritz or any place like that every day. So this is Adare Manor. Afternoon tea will be the next slide, I believe. Now, this is also the gallery, also refurbished, redecorated. And I believe this is where tea is served. And that I should know, but I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
It is in the gallery. Right. Okay. The next one. And that is, you see at the top.
Look at that.
And this is their tea. Very elegant, as you can see. When I make cucumber sandwiches, I don't roll the cucumbers like that. It's very lovely, very elegant, but it's not something, again, it's not something that we do every day. The next one.
Oh, the famous Ashford, yeah.
Famous Ashford Castle, of course. These are all the top places for tea, and they are all included in my book recipes. They were very generously contributed. So most of the rest, not all, most of them, especially in the book, in the sweets section, which would be the top tier, the very elegant pastries that the average person at home would attempt maybe as a 1 or 2 times, attempts, but they're not something that, that's why you go out and have tea there.
Yeah, you wouldn't be baking that every week, those ones,
No. A Battenberg cake, I have made a Battenberg cake, but it was, simply to test, can the average human being really make a Battenberg cake? The answer is yes. They're not as hard as they look, but that's the beautiful, checkerboard cake that people know. So that's Ashford, and then the next is the Connacht room in the castle, which is where tea is served, and you can see over on the left side of your screen, their 3-tiered stand actually is from floor up to the table. It's quite elaborate. Yeah, wow. Beautiful. And this is.
Sorry, I thought I went backwards, but I didn't.
Yeah. So there you see too. Their chocolate is stamped with the Ashford Castle and its logo, and that appears on a lot of their chocolate desserts, which includes this one. Now, whether or not this particular selection is always available, or whether this was for the photo, I don't know. But if certainly you have an ample amount of sweets for that course. and I say course because a full afternoon tea in a place like Ashford or Adare, of course, it comes with 3 tiers, the bottom tier with the sandwiches, the middle tier with scones, and the third tier with the sweets and pastries.
Mm-hmm. And am I right in thinking, Margaret, sorry to interrupt you, that like this evolved because, you know, the rich people ate their meals so late at night that, you know, some lady apparently said one day, you know, just send up some tea and things because it was too long of a break between lunch and dinner, you know. But this is also a huge meal, you know, how are you? And they were corseted, you know. So is that
Exactly.
right that it did,
Yes.
you know, yeah.
Well, it actually was the
British, I mean,
ritual, if
probably.
you will,
Yeah.
began with the Duchess of Bedford in England,
Mm-hmm.
1840-ish, 40, 45, when just exactly what you said, dinner was served at 9
Mm,
and breakfast, and really, they really didn't eat much lunch.
mm,
So the story about the advent of afternoon tea is that one day she was very, very hungry, around 3, and asked her maid to bring her just some bread and butter sandwiches, something not nearly as elaborate. This is the evolution of
mm-hmm,
afternoon tea over, 100 years or more.
mm-hmm,
Um, that so the maid brought tea and some sandwiches, and then it just continued the next day, sandwiches, and then it evolved maybe just a simple biscuit,
mm-hmm,
and then when the group, they were on summer holidays out in the country, I forget exactly where, and when they returned to London for the fall, they the idea was expanded, and then pottery, Wedgwood, and Spode, and teaware became very popular because if the aristocracy was interested in it, let's capitalize on the interest. So
mm-hmm,
that is apparently how it evolved. But
mm-hmm.
even now, 2000, 2022, people still going for afternoon tea, but each successive maybe decade, there's some new twist that's added to it. One in
Mm-hmm.
particular, like I'll just mention the Marion Hotel in Dublin,
Mm-hmm.
across the street from the government buildings. They have an art tea now. I should have had that with me to show you, which is afternoon tea service similar to any of the regular ones, but the Marion, their drawing rooms are filled with precious impression 19th and 20th century art.
Hmm.
So every 3 months the pastry chef there rotates his pastries to imitate the art. So I'll use my great grandmother here as an example, which is not very colorful, but if she were dressed, let's say in a red velvet gown.
Mm-hmm.
So this month, or for the 3-month period, maybe for the spring or something, the pastries would be something that imitated her
Wow.
red velvet gown, or
Mm-hmm.
whatever, maybe she was wearing a hat. So
Mm-hmm.
it's something like that. So it's called their art tea, and
Wow.
it's very popular. And instead of the top tier being offered like this, the pastries come, you get 3 of them with a little card in front of each one with the picture of the artwork that it is
Oh,
mimicking. So again,
oh,
it's just evolving from a bread and butter sandwich or a Kimberly biscuit
yeah.
to something that's just,
Yeah, very
over the top.
decadent.
Yes, right.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
that's Ashford's top tier there.
Mm-hmm.
And so Bushmills Inn in County Antrim, it's a lovely old coaching inn. They also have a lovely afternoon tea. It's just a little more simplistic than the previous ones. Even though the top tier, you have macarons and some little I can't even say it myself. Some floral thing
Mm-hmm.
and paste on top of a little pastry, but it's just
Mm-hmm.
a little scaled down, more in keeping with the idea of the coaching in, the
Yeah. And
decor.
those finger sandwiches, I could make those. There's no rolled cucumber. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That's a
Mm-hmm.
good spot. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the next, oh,
That
this is
must be it
just a
again.
wider shot. It's a beautiful photo.
Mm-hmm.
Courtyard with the white, the white brick from the coach house.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
And
wow.
this is a lovely place in Galway, Cupan Tae. Did you say Tae,
Yeah,
Elizabeth?
Cupan Tae.
Okay, thanks. It's owned by girl Allison, last name I forget. She's married to an American. She splits her time between Galway and Brooklyn,
Oh,
and
wow.
she has this lovely tea shop, down those little alleys off the main street, in Galway, and hers is also a little bit more homespun looking. Even the top tier, she's got, it looks like a pavlova or something on the top tier, but generous size scone. Again, almost if you block the top 2 tiers off and you just looked at those sandwiches, those would be something that the average person could make. But also loose tea. Most places do serve loose tea, not tea bags that I described at the beginning, but we're home.
Yeah,
I don't know.
And that's all part of the ritual, probably, the straining, and you get to taste
absolutely.
the tea, and
And you get a tea menu on all of these places. Besides the, you don't get really a choice for the food part, but you get an extensive tea menu, and you're always welcome to try more than one. So you'll get, a white tea, a black tea, oolong, pu'er, or any exotic teas that you might want. Do you drink tea at home though, like where you are now? Would you use tea bags?
We do, yeah. Like, to be honest, I'm a more coffee person in the morning. I don't feel awake without it, but I have to say my parents drink a cup of tea every night, like right before going to bed. So, and like immediately after our meal we have dinner, at night, there's always tea straight after dinner. So, like I've had a tea at 6 o'clock, and I'll be having another one going into bed. So even though it has the same amount of caffeine as coffee, and yet, we drink it as a going to bed almost.
I grew up too having a cup of tea and some kind of a little sweet cookie, brownie, something every night of my life when I was younger.
And like my mother would have tea, 11 o'clock with lunchtime. She'd have another little pick me up in the afternoon, So yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, she drinks much more tea than I would coffee. Like I probably have on a bad day, like 3 cups of coffee at work just to keep me going, but she would have at least 5. So,
Yeah, they are the largest consumers of tea after after Turkish people.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. And imagine we have to import the thing,
Yeah, right. Okay, next, I don't know how many more.
Here we are, Dromoland.
Dromoland. This isn't too far from where you are right now. Also lovely afternoon tea service. I think the next slide has a photo of that.
Oh yeah, so there's a champagne one there. That's lovely.
Yeah.
And their cakes are very fancy.
They are. Yep, they are. And it's funny too, people have spotted this. Like I mentioned, I do programs, and I'll show some of these same slides. And when people ask me questions like, so Margaret, so if I'm going to do a tea at home, I would do the sandwiches, the scones. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, absolutely. And then this slide comes up, and
I know the cakes are on the wrong place.
Raise their hand and say, the scones are on the top tier. I think.
Yeah. And is there a rule too about like you must have a smoked salmon, you must have a cucumber and cream cheese, and you must have an egg? Is that like they seem to be ubiquitous? Like,
no, right? No, there isn't any rule, but it's quite often that you will find, in Ireland especially, smoked salmon. Of course, you would. Maybe
those ones I don't like, olives and stuff. I wonder what's going on there. That's a lot of flavors, There
are a lot of flavors, and the more someone sent me a recipe for I couldn't fathom this, a grated carrot and ginger sandwich.
Oh,
no. It was grated carrots, but what bound it was mayonnaise.
Oh God, so no!
I don't think people again to be innovative.
Yeah, there's no point messing with the tradition. I think like that. Like carrot and ginger is lovely in soup.
That's it. Yeah, right.
Look at the butter, my God, in those dishes.
But the champagne, I'm glad you mentioned that too, because that's always an option over and above what you'll pay for the tea. And most teas now, if you were to go to Dromoland or the Marriott, any of these places, you would pay more than 55 euros.
Yeah, I'd say probably that per person, like, isn't it?
Per person.
Yeah.
And then if you were to add the champagne or Prosecco, and they're always top drawer, another 20 maybe.
Yeah, per glass, like, yeah.
And we said earlier, it's not an everyday thing.
Hmm.
This is an occasion.
Yeah.
An occasion.
Like some
So,
groups do it for showers, type thing, or we don't really do showers, but for the bachelorette, party, they might do it.
absolutely.
Or you like your mom and your nana, So, but yeah.
Right. Right. The
Hmm.
last time I was in Dublin, right before the pandemic, was June 2019, and I did have tea both at the Marion and the Shelburne,
Mm.
but more at the Shelburne, because at the Shelburne, there are seatings.
Hmm.
You make a
Oh,
reservation, so
yeah.
it's for 11:30 or 1:30 or 3:30 or 5:30.
Oh.
And it only seats 40, I think it's 44 or 46 people. So they have to do it that way. Whereas the
Hmm.
Marion is a little more casual, not
Yeah.
formal, but it's not so rigorous.
Yeah.
But every single person in the Shelburne having tea was some occasion.
Oh,
Even I
yeah.
asked, the maitre d', and he said, yes, those people over there, it's the gentleman's 75th birthday.
Hmm.
Um, the other one might have been an anniversary
Hmm.
party, or
So there was
every
men at it too. That sounds very sexist, but
oh,
yeah.
yes.
Hmm.
In
Hmm.
fact, one of the tables, it was the gentleman's birthday.
Ah, yeah.
But,
See,
you
we
know,
never thought to bring my father to one of these. It's always the girls. Yeah.
the
Oh,
next, okay, and the next one,
good.
Elizabeth?
Oh, Killarney, Great Southern. Hmm.
Oh, yeah, Kalani Great Southern.
Very
Um,
nice. Oh, see,
interesting
now
too.
they have fruit cake too. That's good. Hmm. Or that,
Absolutely.
brack. Yeah.
Yep. And then the little milk bottle, it's like a little strawberry
Yeah.
shake kind of thing.
Yes. Oh, yeah,
Again,
like a little yogurt.
something you wouldn't expect,
Mm.
innovative, and it's a little odd. Again, I think this is totally for a photo shoot, because the smoked salmon next to the strawberry shake,
Yeah.
not that appealing. But again,
Yeah, and
maybe
that looks like tiramisu or something. But it
possibly.
must be a
At the bottom,
savory.
that's a biscuit
And
cake.
yeah, that's delicious, but I don't like the marshmallow in it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, so they do theirs in the wrong order or in a different order. We
I
won't give
think
out
so.
about Kerry.
I think it's for just photo.
Literally the photo, yeah. So here we are, the Shelburne.
Here at the
Hmm.
Shelburne. Of course, a lot of the places that you've seen here, they do have a gentleman in a top hat and tails who welcome you.
Hmm. And there's such a lot of history with the Shelburne too.
And
Hmm.
there it is. This is
Mm.
also after a makeover from the
Hmm.
Lord Mayor's Lounge. And in the book, in my book, and you alluded to it, during the Easter Rising on Easter Monday, the window that you see over on the right-hand side, of course, that's the front of the hotel.
Hmm.
And there's a little interesting thing there where the ladies were sitting, having their tea, guns and things going off outside. And this is from a little story that the Shelburne actually gives you when you're having your tea. And
Oh.
it's called Tea and the Easter Rising. And it says, while there was some question of whether tea might be more safely served in the library rather than in the quote sunny and splendid drawing room, there was never any question of canceling the event. Tea must and would be served, and whatever was happening outside the walls of the Shelburne could wait. The pots of tea and pastries were brought out, spirits were high, and civilized conversation flowed. When a stray bullet flew through the window and clipped one petal of a rose in a lady's hat, the guests finally agreed to move to another room. They took their tea with them, and probably the scones, which I have the recipe in the book, which they carried with them. So that's such a fabulous example of, like the show must go on.
Yeah.
So there's the window. And
And that's the
when
one day you do want champagne at your tea, I can tell you. You're being shot at.
but
Wow.
that is the room, the refurbished room, and you see
Yeah.
over on the left side of your screen the buckets of champagne that just
Yeah.
waiting. I would say to most people, if you're celebrating, you're probably, and I don't know who introduced the idea of champagne with tea,
Yeah.
because it's a little odd combination. When I've had tea and had champagne with it, I always ask to have the champagne like more midway through. I don't really want champagne with an egg salad sandwich.
Right, yeah.
Well, I like it with the pastries.
Yes, exactly.
Get
Yeah, I think I'm the same.
the
Hmm.
pastries.
Good. It is
So thanks
delicious.
to Lord Mayor.
The
And they're the
Shelburne. Mm-hmm.
same. And there's again that one of the windows where people would duck from.
God, their scones
Also,
look delicious. I'm glad you have that recipe.
right now, see, this is a 4-tiered stand,
Hmm.
which is also a little unusual. And they have the scones on the bottom. Again, someone to contradict me.
Hmm.
And those are small loaves of brown bread.
Oh yeah, that looks
So that's
delicious too.
a little addition that you don't normally see. You see lots of sandwiches made with brown bread, but not necessarily the little loaves, which is so lovely.
Hmm.
And they always give you a little to-go box. They don't expect, I guess.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. And they're
Yeah.
very cute too. They're, specially made. And so they say that immediately. If
Hmm.
whatever you don't finish, don't worry, we take it home. Now, the thing is, I'm not sure about the glassware at the top, but that's also a very popular thing now. It's kind of like
Yeah.
a panna cotta. Sometimes it's a little mousse layered
Hmm.
with, with fruit. But
Hmm. As
just
opposed to the cakes of your kind of, yeah.
exactly, yeah,
Hmm.
right. Kind of like to that strawberry milkshake that we saw at the
Hmm.
Great
Hmm.
Southern. Okay, there's might be one or two more. I'm not sure. Oh yeah,
Lord knows, yeah.
this was from the last tea I was at, actually,
Oh,
with
at the Shelburne.
pretty artistic picture, I have to say.
Mm-hmm. Oh, you put that together yourself.
I did. I mean, it
Yeah,
was just
it's lovely.
literally in front of
Hmm.
me. Yes.
Hmm. Very
And
nice.
maybe one more. Oh
Oh,
yes.
Michael Flatley.
So
Mm.
this was a Michael Flatley tea. Again, to go back to the idea of innovation and keeping tea fresh. And so Michael Flatley, I don't know that anyone knows it, is an artist. He's a painter, in addition to being a dancer and choreographer.
My God, I don't think
And
there's anything he can't do, to be honest.
so the room for this period of time, maybe 6 weeks or something, had his paintings hanging, all for sale, of course.
Mm.
So the Michael Flatley tea, that was a special menu. And like I described, the Marion art tea,
Hmm.
these pastries had some little mimic, if you will, of
Oh,
one of his paintings that
okay.
was on offer for the time.
Wow.
Also very, very lovely. And you got
Mhm.
that menu. And of course, everything is free to take with you for souvenirs and things like that.
Mm.
And at the Shelburne, they may have changed this, and I don't, to be 100% honest, I don't remember if I took this 2019 or whether I took it at an earlier stage. They may have changed I wouldn't say the not the costumes, what the servers would be wearing.
Oh, yeah.
But at the time, the girls all wore these beautiful black dresses with little sheer sleeves, pearls, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. They're
And
like the 1920s or something. Maybe the
kind of,
40s.
yeah. They were
Yeah.
in black stockings, black shoes, etc.
Oh.
So that was, I thought, a lovely, beautiful girl. I don't know whether they hire them.
And where was that? The Michael Flatley tea? Was that in a hotel or in a?
Children also.
Oh, Shelburne. Oh, very nice.
Again, I think this is before the refurbishment.
Yes, that makes more sense now. Yeah.
Right.
Hmm.
Okay, if you go to the next slide,
Hmm.
this again was
Inspired. Yeah.
the menu for the afternoon. See, an afternoon tea inspired by the artwork of the
Yeah.
artist Michael Flatley.
Yeah.
Again,
Wow.
sale. And then I think I might finish. Oh, there's that beautiful girl.
Hmm.
This is definitely before the refurbishment. So this must have been
Hmm.
maybe 2018,
17
maybe
or 18.
17.
Hmm.
And then at the
Oh, the
end,
Westbury. Oh, that was a
oh,
famous one too, the Westbury, yeah.
the Westbury. I guess I didn't include this. I do have it in another slideshow. Just to go back, the lovely looking girls and
Hmm.
finishing. Okay, so they're all like this. So at the end of the service, your period, your allotted time. So 1:30, you get an hour and 45 minutes. It's really more than enough time, and they don't rush you, and you barely know that they are kind of
Yeah.
like
Out you go.
the
Yeah.
next meeting, right?
Yeah.
So um, after everyone is finished, that people start to get up and they clear the tables. Again, no rush. And like clockwork, they clear the tables and they take the white tablecloth and they fold it and they take that one off. And
Mhm.
then another group of girls come out and they have the new tablecloth over their arm, right? And they, working as a team, will
Mhm.
spread the tablecloth out, straighten it, make sure it's all even. And then one girl comes out with an iron,
Wow.
plugs it in, and she irons the creases.
Oh my
And
God.
she unplugs it, she goes to the next time. And I have a photo of that. And she was, and I was flabbergasted that they actually do that. But that's how, precise they are.
Precise. Yeah. I
Yeah.
have to say, I think sometimes these afternoon teas are nearly more like posh, than dinner in the same restaurant would be.
Oh, I think
It's
so.
funny, isn't
I,
it? Maybe it's more ritualistic or something, but
oh,
yeah,
I agree. Because I mean, you can have a salad, a main course, and a dessert,
yeah,
and they could all look alike. But this is much more ritualistic and
yeah,
more.
it's very nice.
Yeah.
I'm
And
just going to see in case there was more. I know the Westbury, very pretty flowers and things for that.
beautiful,
Mhm.
beautiful. I think I'm not sure if. Oh, and this is
Oh
okay,
yeah.
overlooking Grafton Street. This is a
Mhm.
lovely, lovely photo of, now Bewley's is just up the street a little bit here.
Yeah. God, I love the furniture there.
Hmm.
And this is something I was meant to comment on earlier on. The wear is so beautiful. Sometimes they match, like, and sometimes they don't match, or they're, heavily gilded. Yeah, beautiful china.
This idea of the mismatched China
Hmm.
is something that you're seeing more and more, not necessarily in one of the hotels that we just
Hmm.
saw, but in smaller tea venues
Yeah,
that are more
shabby
cottage.
chic or whatever they call them.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
yeah.
which is actually very, very nice. And if you set a table for tea with mismatched cups and saucers like this, it is quite impressive. Maybe
Hmm.
more so than, everything all matching and elegant.
Hmm. There was a place in Killarney. God, I don't know if it survived the pandemic now or not, but we got my nana a voucher, to go for her birthday a couple of years ago. It's something like somebody's cottage or something, or somebody's tea room, maybe Hannah's tea room or something like that. And it just did, afternoon tea, but I don't
Mhm.
know if it would have survived, the COVID. But I think they were kind of famous for having mismatched cups. Oh, here's the
Oh,
art.
here it
Yeah.
is.
Hmm.
Oh, so here's the art
Oh
tea.
God, yeah, that's very interesting, isn't it? Like the house. And
Exactly.
this thing,
And the
look at that
colors.
there. Hmm.
And again, behind, you can barely see it. And again, I should have brought these up. I have three of these forks that the
Oh,
chef, I begged him, can I please take this fork?
yeah. I'm going to rob your cutlery.
Yes, right.
Yeah.
Because when I show this to people, I bring a small rectangular plate. And of course, I don't have anything that elaborate, but as an example, I might put a brownie and something else and something else. And then
Hmm.
I do the forks, and the tines of the fork are bent up so that the little cards
Oh,
sit
can
in.
sit in it. Yeah. Wow.
So, and
Mhm.
then um, on the back of each card is, well, the name of the painting is on the front, and when you
Mhm.
turn the card over, it will tell you the artist and when the painting was created, and maybe just one or two little things. And then, of course, some of um, the edible ingredients, obviously
Mhm.
dark and white chocolate. This is like a lime mousse over on the right-hand side, and this is like an
Mhm.
orange and lemon mousse. But it's a beautiful presentation, obviously.
Mhm. And as you say, the gimmick of it is nice, because you're not getting the same cake that you would
Correct.
always get, kind of, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, futile defense. So there you go.
This
Yeah.
is this is just a close up of one of
Mhm.
those pictures, which shows you that it's a little lemon mousse, lemon raspberry.
Mm. Imagine to stuff the raspberry with that curd or whatever it is lovely.
I think, and these are maybe I should have made these a little bit smaller, but again, these are close.
Mhm. But like he redid whatever that is, frying pan with eggs on, the cake.
Yep.
Yeah. Now, Bilik. So you must have been talking about pottery or something?
Yes, yes. Again, this is a lot of people do collect Balik
Hmm.
teaware,
Oh, the
and
tea, yeah. Hmm.
just the teaware. And this doesn't happen to be it, but I mean, this is just a photo I took of a woman making one of their baskets, but like a
Hmm.
bread basket. But this is an example too of of how teaware became popular once people began drinking more tea and using it for celebratory reasons.
Billy, so is that up in Mayo somewhere, Margaret, that factory
Fermanagh,
or? Oh yeah.
fermanagh.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Yeah, God, how pretty is that?
And this is a little different. This is obviously not a little different, a lot different from the basket weave that a lot of people are
Yeah.
familiar with the little shamrocks on it. This is a lot of companies, they sell part of their production to another one and so on and so forth. But this is Belique, and it's called Cottage Garden, but it's actually not made in Fermanagh where those craftspeople make. This is more of a mass produced, but it is
Okay.
owned by Belique. But I just think that such a beautiful
So
pattern.
pretty, yeah. I think maybe that's why we never brought my father, because you think about these cups as being so delicate and feminine, and yeah.
Exactly.
Mm.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, so some of these are gorgeous. I've actually seen the green cup somewhere. I
They're
don't know if
pretty.
somebody has it.
Love them.
Yeah. Wow. Oh,
I'm
and
not
that's
sure.
it. Hmm.
At the end?
That's the end.
Okay. I should have had
So
something grand to
I know
end.
you well, we can go back to the champagne. Is there a rule? Because you hear people, well, I don't know if people in America argue about it, but people in Ireland argue all the time when you have scones with an afternoon tea, it comes with like clotted cream and jam. And are you supposed to put the jam on first and then the cream, or the other way around?
Well,
And
that's a
is
big
this,
debate.
a deal breaker?
That's the debate between Cornwall and Devon
Yeah.
in England. Okay. And I always get this mixed up. I always want to say that the Cornish way is to put the cream first, but then I have to remember it's the reverse. The
Okay.
Cornish way is to put the jam first and then the cream. And the Devon way is to put the cream first and then the jam. And
Yeah.
each county has a reason behind it.
Yeah.
And I off the top of my head, I can't actually explain it, but and I've never been to either Cornwall or Devon.
No, me neither. I think I put cream first because it's not butter, but you would put butter first and then you would put your jam, so.
So that's the
But I
Devon
have
way.
eaten it both ways and it's delicious either way.
I think the best thing to do when you break your scone is to do one half cream and then the jam. And
Yes, and
jam.
smush it. That's a good way. Okay, yeah, you're a nice compromiser. And so we talked about the sandwiches. Like, I suppose you don't want. I'm surprised, like, by the variety of breads that people are using now. Like in the old days, I suppose it was kind of just white sliced pan and brown sliced pan, and now, or maybe a little bit of homemade brown bread for the smoked salmon. But that girl on Cupan Tae seemed to have, kind of bread with seeds or fruit in it. Sometimes now people are using, wraps instead of bread. There's a whole,
Absolutely.
big change. Coronation chicken, even though you would
I
think
did that.
courage chicken is.
I
Did you have
use
that recipe? Yeah.
mini croissants.
Mm.
I would say you asked about, is there a rule? I don't think there's a rule, but it is always suggested, and you will, I'm sure, always find this, that you'll find no two sandwiches will be made on the same bread. So you'll get a croissant, a wrap, 4 or 5 different, well, you wouldn't get probably 4 or 5 anyway, but say 3 choices of 3 offerings. And they usually will be all cut into a different shape as well. So a triangle, a rectangle, a croissant, which there's no shape to that. When I make my cucumber sandwiches, I use white bread and I use a scone cutter, biscuit cutter,
Oh,
and
nice.
serve them as rounds. And then put the cucumber, which fits beautifully in it, and I use
Yeah.
Boursin cheese, it's a garlic and
Very nice. Yeah.
spread it with the cucumber. Yeah.
And do you peel your cucumber or leave the skin on?
No, I keep the skin on it because I use English cucumbers and the skin is
Yeah. Thinner, kind
soft,
of.
thinner. Yeah.
Yeah. I like cucumber. A lot of people don't like it, but I think some people aren't able to actually taste it, or so it maybe feels like nothing to them.
Maybe.
Yeah. Also, I hate egg, so I always give somebody else the egg sandwiches, but
Oh,
there's
really?
always an egg, option, which is
Right.
terrible because it's so smelly. You think it kind of affects everything else on the tray.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah, well, this is as someone now who hates eggs, but people who like eggs love to see an egg salad sandwich coming. But I'm always like, oh God, I hope it didn't touch the ham. Like, yeah. And then I am amazed at how the desserts have changed. Like as you say, now there's mousses and all of these things. In the old days, you got like, a millefeuille or kind of a pastry, an eclair thing, and you were happy with
Exactly.
that. But it's
Yeah.
gotten very elaborate.
Very, very.
Hmm.
But I try to be down to earth
Mm.
and for the home cook. So even though the recipes in this book, they do have, like the Battenberg cake, milfoil, and things like that to try. And I've tried them all. I'm a
Okay.
home cook. I should have, I don't want to correct you, but I'm not a chef.
You're right. Okay.
Right.
Hmm.
So if
But
I
you're
can
a
do it,
very good cook.
very
Yeah.
good. If I can do it,
Yeah.
anyone can.
Well,
But again,
I did want to say that about your recipe books, like they are, because I like cooking, but I'm also not a chef. But I like cooks who tell you in their books like it should look like this, or do it until it goes bubbly, or So your recipes are very easy to follow, which I like.
right. I think they are accessible. I like to
Yeah.
say they're accessible, And
Yeah.
so if I see something or if I eat something, or if I'm offered something that is so elaborate, if I know there's no chance that I'm
Yeah.
ever going to make it, I would decline. Like if a chef says, what recipe do you want? I'd be happy to give you one. I
Hmm.
always opt for
The kind of
the
easier option. Yeah, more.
and
And
just one
go
last
ahead,
thing
sorry,
about.
Margaret. Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, for people who aren't familiar with Irish food at all, I almost always,
Hmm.
offer a tea brack or a little fruit cake because people in the U.S. just think fruitcake is Christmas. Fruitcake is
Yeah.
Christmas, and then some people say, "Oh, I hate fruitcake. Oh, I hate fruitcake," because they used to, or they see those that are offered at Christmas that you buy in the store and they're
Yeah.
dark
Dry
brown.
and horrible.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So I always um, offer a tea brack,
Mm.
and people are amazed at it. Oh my gosh, this doesn't even taste like fruitcake. Oh,
Yeah.
this is so, and that is so easy and
Yeah.
so delicious. And if I have a
Yeah.
small group, I do make individual ones,
Hmm.
which people absolutely love because then they can, take home what they don't finish.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, I think you're right. We have so many different variations of that, like porter cake and fruit cake,
Mhm.
and they're delicious. I mean, obviously the one with porter, but some of them have a little bit of brandy. You soak the fruit in brandy, or they're delicious, all of them. With or without butter. The other thing I was going to say was we're kind of blessed now, Margaret, too, in that like you can buy choux pastry kind of already done, and you just have to, little things like that you don't have to make everything from scratch.
Oh, right, right. Oh,
Yeah.
puff pastry. Yeah,
Yeah,
in
puff, yeah.
recipes that do, let's say, require, or if you need a puff pastry, let's say for like a milfoil, absolutely, like a Pepperidge Farm or a Dufour pastries,
Yeah.
absolutely. I don't attempt any of those. No.
Yeah. No, no, me neither. And like
Shortcuts
they're
are
very
elegant.
popular. Yeah. I actually
Yeah.
think I've seen as part of an afternoon tea, like vol au in the sandwich
Oh, yeah,
section. Yeah. Now that you
absolutely.
say puff pastry, because I do love puff pastry. Hmm. But look, this was fantastic. I hope we've given everybody an idea. Might be too late to organise an afternoon tea today, Mother's Day, but you could certainly, indulge at the weekend. And there are some, well, I'm not sure about in Albany, but for sure in the city, and I'd say a lot of the hotels probably do an afternoon tea if you
In
asked
New
for
York
one.
City? Oh, yes, absolutely. New York.
Hmm.
Yeah. I did an
I
article
think
for,
the Plaza does one
yeah,
in
they
that
do.
conservatory. Yeah,
They're
just as
smaller
a
ones.
treat,
So I did one for Tea Time Magazine it was
Yeah.
their October issue, I think. I did 5 tea venues in New York
Oh,
from a
good.
place, yeah, down called Tea and Sympathy. It's
Oh,
down in
yes,
the
I've been
village,
to that. Hmm.
right? And that's so,
Hmm.
so non, it's definitely shabby chic.
Yeah, yeah.
Only
That's
good,
exactly right.
And then Yeah, there's
Yeah.
a wide variety of options. Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
So
good.
if anyone is interested in my book, of course, maybe you could put the link up or something. I don't know whether
Yes,
I.
we're going to put up the link. We hopefully will have copies through your publisher to buy in the museum, but it's stocked almost. And I'll certainly add Margaret's website, to the link and to the website and the Facebook page so that you can click on the
Great.
link and buy there. But as we said, you have over 10 books, so it's not just afternoon tea. Obviously, these recipes will be easy, but beautiful book. The pub food of Ireland I absolutely loved, and all these other flavors of Ireland, because there's some hearty meals more than just shepherd's pie, or that, yeah, which I also love. But it's good. And now that I'm home too, I'm trying things. We're going to be going up to Galway and Mayo for the weekend, so we're going to be
Oh,
testing
wonderful.
food from all up along the west coast. So we'll have
That's a
updates.
great tour.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Great, great.
So thank you very much for joining us, everyone. And Margaret, thank you. Margaret
Thank
Johnson's
you.
two new books, Festive Flavors of Ireland and this afternoon tea book, Tea Time in Ireland.
Right.
We'll certainly send up those links.
Okay.
And happy
Thank you.
Mother's Day, everybody.
Yes, happy Mother's Day.
Yeah, thank you very much. So I can stop the share now. Okay.